Love is a major theme in the plays of Shakespeare, and one play in which love is absolutely central is A Midsummer Night's Dream. So what do we know about love from a psychological perspective? In a very simple sense, emotions can be thought of as complex interactions between behaviours, mental representations, and physiological states. For some emotions, such as anger or fear, it is reasonably easy to define the behaviours, mental representations and physiological states that characterise the emotion. For example, fear is a response to some form of threat appraisal. Physically, it will manifest itself in fight or flight responses, such as increased heart rate or sweaty palms, and behaviourally, it results in threat avoidance behaviours, such as moving away from the threat or trying not to draw the attention of the threat. Defining love is not so easy, as there is a comparatively wider range of overlapping sets of behaviours, mental representations, and physiological states that we collectively recognise as being love. We use the word love to describe an emotional state that is characterised by feelings of affection or desire. It is also generally associated with feelings of pleasure, contentment, and attachment. In this case, I'm going to focus on the idea of love being an emotional state felt by one individual towards another individual, rather than, say, loving chocolate or loving your pet. But even this doesn't help narrow it down a whole lot. Consider the different relationships that we see between the characters in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Many of these involve the emotional state love in some form or another. There is obviously romantic love between some of the characters, and in some cases this is passionate and sexual. But love doesn't necessarily need to be passionate or sexual. There are also relationships based on the idea of long-term companionship and fidelity. We also see deep affection between friends and the concern of parents for the well-being of their children. In each case, we can argue that these are all expressions of different aspects of what we understand to be love, and yet they manifest themselves in markedly different behaviours on the part of the characters. The fact that they do indeed behave differently shouldn't be surprising, because we have very different mental representations of the types of behaviours that are appropriate in relation to these various forms of love. These mental representations are heavily reliant on cultural context and can differ markedly across different cultures and across time. For example, the culturally specified rules for the sorts of behaviours that are appropriate for a couple that are romantically attached, like we see with the young lovers, are very different to the rules that govern the behaviours that are appropriate for interactions between friends, such as Bottom and the other players, or between a parent and a child, such as Aegeus and Hermia. From a physiological point of view, research has shown that in some situations, neurotransmitters like oxytocin and serotonin appear to play an important role. Broadly speaking, these neurotransmitters are associated with feelings of pleasure, so that warm, gooey feeling you get when you're in love, that's these guys at work. For example, oxytocin levels have been shown to rise when individuals think about or interact with loved ones, and dosing individuals with oxytocin has been shown to induce emotional and behavioural changes. But these effects are certainly never anything near as dramatic as the love drug that Puck uses in the play on the young lovers, or to make Titania fall in love with a donkey-headed Bottom. It is important to point out that oxytocin and serotonin are not associated with all of the different states that we might define as love, and that these neurotransmitters are also associated with psychological states that have nothing really to do with what we might call love. So, the general consensus of research into the psychology of love suggests that there is no one thing that we can call love. Rather, it is a set of overlapping behaviours, mental representations, and physiological states that we culturally agree to call love. So in this sense, love as a unitary concept doesn't exist. This is bad for researchers who are trying to define and understand what love is, but happily, it shouldn't affect your experience of the emotional state one bit.